All right, so let's dive into something that I think we've all probably struggled with at some point,
Hmm.
procrastination. But specifically procrastination when it comes to trading.
Right.
You know, that feeling of like, I'll analyze that chart later, or, oh yeah, risk management, I'll get to that tomorrow, but
Yeah,
trust me, I've learned the hard way that putting these things off can seriously impact your results.
for sure.
But what I'm really excited about in this deep dive is that we're going to go beyond just the theory. We're going to look at actual stories of real traders who are struggling with this and
Hmm.
see how even just making small changes, they were able to achieve some pretty amazing results.
Mm.
And to help us understand the psychology of
Yeah.
why these things work, we have our expert here
Absolutely.
to break it all down for
Happy to
us.
be here.
Yeah. So, our sources all start by calling out what they call the biggest lie in trading. And that's telling ourselves, I'll do it tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know I've definitely fallen into that trap more times than I'd like to admit, but why is this such a common struggle for traders?
I think there are a few different reasons why we procrastinate. One reason is that our brains are wired to seek instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And trading can be, it can be tough. There's a learning curve, and sometimes it feels easier to just kind of push things off.
Yeah, yeah.
Another reason is that we might be afraid of failing.
Right.
So instead of taking action, we just kind of stay stuck.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The market doesn't reward procrastination.
Yeah.
It rewards consistency. It
Yeah.
rewards discipline. It rewards the willingness to learn from every trade, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that happens if we keep hitting the snooze button on our goals.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point.
Mhm.
Is like we're trying to outsmart the market by putting things off, which, let's face it, rarely ends well.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one of the solutions that kept popping up in the material was journaling. Now, I'll be honest, for the longest time, I thought journaling was just for, like, super serious traders.
Yeah.
But then we come across Emily's story.
Hmm.
Now, Emily was only trading part-time,
Okay.
and she really struggled to make journaling a habit.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar to anyone out there?
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
She decided to start small. She committed to recording just one trade per day.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, right?
Yeah.
But that one tiny change ended up revealing some hidden patterns in her trading.
Interesting.
Like she noticed she tended to make impulsive decisions on days when she was really stressed out.
Uh-huh.
That's a game changer right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I found so fascinating about Emily's story is that she really just stumbled upon this by accident.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't even trying to uncover these patterns. She was just trying to make journaling a habit. So what's the takeaway here? Like, why is journaling so powerful, even if you're just doing it for one trade a day?
Well, I think what's really interesting about journaling is that it's not just about writing things down. It's about turning hindsight into foresight.
Hmm.
So instead of just thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't made that trade, you actually have a record of why you made it, what your emotional state was, what your analysis left like.
Right.
And that becomes incredibly valuable data for spotting your strengths, your weaknesses, and those bad habits that might be holding you back.
Hmm.
And what's really cool is that it doesn't have to be super complicated, You can just start with a simple notebook or a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Just jot down a few key details about each trade.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the date, the time, the instrument you traded, the entry price, the exit price.
Right.
And then maybe a few notes about why you entered the trade,
Okay.
what your thought process was, and how you felt emotionally.
So it's almost like having like a personalized trading coach in your notebook.
Exactly.
Except this coach knows all your secrets, good and bad.
Great. That's right. And don't just focus on the wins. Documenting those losses is where the real learning happens.
Okay.
What went wrong? Did you deviate from your plan? Were you feeling overly confident or scared?
Interesting.
That's the goldmine of information that helps you improve.
Okay, that makes journaling seem a lot less daunting. It's not about, writing a novel. It's about collecting these little nuggets of insight
Right.
that can make a huge difference over time.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that leads perfectly into our next point, which is risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know some of you might be groaning right now, but trust me, this is important stuff. It's something that a lot of traders, especially new traders, tend to put off.
Absolutely.
And we have Jake's story, which is a perfect example of what can happen when you play fast and loose with risk.
Right. So Jake was convinced he could manage it manually. He thought he didn't need those pesky stop-loss orders.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
It's a common misconception, this idea that we can somehow outsmart the market's volatility.
Yeah.
But as Jake quickly learned, the market has a way of humbling even the most confident traders.
It does. Oh, yeah. I think we've all been humbled by the market at some point, right? It's a rite of passage almost.
That's right.
But Jake kept putting off setting up a real risk management plan even after experiencing some significant losses. What was it that finally made him take action?
It took a really big hit to his account to finally make him take action.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did he do?
So what he did was simple, but it was incredibly effective. He decided to risk no more than 1% of his trading capital on any single trade.
Okay.
This 1% rule became his safety net, especially during volatile periods when emotions run high and it's easy to make impulsive decisions.
So he basically created like a buffer zone to protect himself from those moments of panic or FOMO?
Precisely. And this highlights a crucial point. Risk management isn't about never losing.
Right.
It's about protecting your capital so you can weather the inevitable storms and stay in the game long enough to learn, grow, and ultimately reach your trading goals.
Yeah. It's like having that emergency fund that lets you take risks in other areas of your life because you know you've got that safety net. But here's the interesting thing about Jake's story. It doesn't end there. We learn later on that he didn't just set that 1% rule and forget about it. He actually had to revisit it and adjust his approach as his trading evolved.
That's a key takeaway here. Risk management is an ongoing process, not a one-time setup.
Okay.
As your trading style changes, as your account grows, hopefully, and as market conditions shift, you need to be adaptable.
Yeah.
It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Okay, so risk management is like a dynamic system that needs regular checkups and fine-tuning.
Exactly.
Got it. So we've talked about journaling and risk management, both of which are crucial for any trader, right?
Absolutely.
But there's another element that can dramatically impact your results, and that's learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean feeling bad about a losing trade. I mean actively analyzing what went wrong. Why do so many traders avoid doing this?
Well, I think it's because it's not exactly a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
You know, nobody likes to dwell on their mistakes.
Right.
It's much easier to just brush those losses under the rug and move on.
But isn't there something to be said for, like, not dwelling on the negative?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between dwelling on the negative and actually learning from your mistakes. And as Tom's story illustrates, confronting those mistakes head on can be a game changer.
Okay.
So Tom was a swing trader.
Okay.
And he really struggled with impulse trading.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have been there.
He'd get excited about a setup and jump in without really thinking it through. Sound familiar?
Maybe a little too familiar.
He had this habit of telling himself, I'll review that losing trade later, but later never seemed to come.
Yeah.
Finally, he decided to try something different.
Okay.
He committed to reviewing just one losing trade each day, specifically one where he had deviated from his plan. What he found was really eye-opening.
Really? What was it?
Well, he realized that he was most prone to impulsive trades when he was feeling pressured to make up for previous losses. That fear of missing out was driving his decisions more than his actual analysis.
So by taking the time to analyze that one trade, he unearthed this whole emotional pattern
Exactly.
that was sabotaging his results.
And that's the power of reviewing your mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not about dwelling on the negative. It's about turning those losses into valuable lessons.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's about identifying those patterns and then coming up with a plan to address them.
This is making me think about all those losing trades I've just sort of shoved aside over the years.
Well, it's never too late to start.
Okay.
And remember, you don't have to go back and analyze every single trade. Just pick one that stands out, one where you know you could have done better, and start there.
Okay. So we've covered journaling, risk management, and reviewing mistakes. Now, these are all essential pieces of the puzzle, but they become even more powerful when combined with a solid trading strategy.
Absolutely. A well-defined strategy acts as your compass in the market. It helps you avoid impulsive trades, manage risk effectively, and make decisions based on logic rather than emotion.
Our sources mention Sarah, who spent a long time jumping from one trading approach to another, hoping she'd magically stumble upon the perfect strategy.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
It's a common trap for new traders.
Yeah.
They think that a strategy will just appear out of thin air, but in reality, it takes effort, research, and a willingness to experiment.
Mm-hmm. So what was the turning point for Sarah?
The turning point for Sarah came when she finally sat down and made a conscious decision. She decided she would focus solely on breakout trades.
Hmm.
And that's a great starting point. Choosing a specific style of trading helps you narrow your focus and avoid getting overwhelmed by all the different options out there.
So from there, what did she do?
So from there, she started adding the other elements of a robust strategy, like entry criteria, stop-loss placement, profit targets, and rules for managing her trades. She went from relying on gut feelings to having a clear plan for approaching the market.
Okay.
And the results were undeniable.
Really?
Her trading performance improved dramatically, not just because she had a strategy, but because having that strategy gave her confidence and consistency. She wasn't second-guessing herself all the time. She was following a plan.
Mm-hmm. This is making me realize that a strategy isn't just about the technical aspects, it's also about the mental game.
Yeah.
Like it gives you that peace of mind, that feeling of being in control, which is so crucial in trading.
You've hit the nail on the head. Having a strategy reduces those feelings of overwhelm and anxiety that often lead to procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you a clear path forward, which makes it much easier to take action.
That makes sense.
And it helps you stay focused on the long term.
So having a strategy is kind of like a form of pre-commitment. It's like you're making a promise to yourself to follow a certain set of rules.
Yeah.
Even when things get tough.
Even when you're feeling tempted to deviate.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've talked about how a solid strategy can help us avoid impulsive trades and manage risk more effectively. But this also brings us back to risk management, but from a slightly different angle.
Okay.
It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Right.
It evolves alongside your trading journey.
Right. Think about Michael's experience during the 2020 market crash. Like many, he hadn't set a hard daily loss limit, thinking he could handle things as they came.
Yeah.
Well, that crash was a brutal wake-up call, not just for him, but for a lot of traders.
Yeah, those big market swings can really expose the cracks in your trading plan.
That's right.
What did Michael change after that experience?
He implemented a 2% daily loss limit. This basically acted as an emergency brake, preventing him from digging himself deeper into a hole during those high volatility days.
So it was less about predicting the market and more about having a safety net when things inevitably went wrong.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what's crucial is that Michael didn't just set this 2% rule in stone.
Yeah.
He kept monitoring his risk, tweaking those parameters as needed, because market conditions are always in flux.
Right.
That's the essence of good risk management. It's a constant process of evaluation and adaptation, not some magic formula.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like adjusting your sails when the wind changes. Otherwise, you end up way off course.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about the more technical side of things. But there's this whole other aspect of trading that often gets overlooked, and that's the emotional game.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so easy to procrastinate on developing emotional discipline, telling ourselves, we'll be more focused tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the truth is, emotions don't wait for a convenient time.
Right. They hit us right in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. And that's why having strategies for managing those emotions is crucial.
Yeah.
One of our sources talked about Nick, who was a day trader.
Yeah.
And he was notorious for making impulsive decisions. Especially after a loss, he would try to, chase those losses.
Right.
Make back the money quickly.
Right.
Which almost always made things worse.
Of course.
I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of wanting to, get even with the market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very human reaction.
But how did Nick overcome that impulsiveness?
He started incorporating a simple breathing exercise into his trading routine.
Okay.
So before entering each trade, he'd take a minute to just breathe deeply, focus on his breath, and quiet his mind.
So it was about creating a pause between that initial emotional surge and his trading decision.
Precisely. It's a form of mindfulness, really. By focusing on his breath, he was shifting his attention away from those feelings of fear, greed, or frustration, and creating space for more rational thought.
That's so simple, yet brilliant.
It is.
I can see how just a few deep breaths could really change your whole mindset going into a trade.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of other techniques you can use to manage your emotions, like visualization, positive affirmations, or even simply stepping away from the charts for a few minutes when things get too intense.
Like giving yourself a timeout.
Yeah.
Like we used to get as kids.
Exactly. Sometimes a little distance is all you need to regain perspective.
Yeah. So it's about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
What helps you stay calm, focused, and in control of your emotions.
Exactly.
Even when the market is doing its best to throw you off balance.
Right. because the market will test you, that's for sure.
This whole conversation about emotional discipline is making me think about something you mentioned earlier, that fear of failure
Yeah,
that often lies at the root of procrastination.
absolutely.
What advice would you give to our listeners who are struggling with that fear?
Well, the first thing I would say is that it's important to acknowledge that fear is a natural human emotion.
Right.
Everyone feels it, especially in a field like trading,
Yeah.
where there's inherent risk and uncertainty.
Right.
So don't beat yourself up for feeling afraid.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to not let fear paralyze you. Don't let it stop you from taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, the more you avoid something out of fear, the bigger and scarier it becomes in your mind.
It's like avoiding a doctor's appointment because you're afraid of what they might find.
Exactly.
The longer you wait, the more anxious you get.
That's right. So my advice would be, acknowledge the fear,
Okay.
understand where it's coming from, but then take that small step anyway.
Okay.
Start journaling one trade a day.
Mm-hmm.
Set up that 1% risk limit.
Hmm.
Review a single losing trade.
Mm-hmm.
You might be surprised at how empowering it feels to take action despite the fear.
It's about proving to yourself that you can face that fear and come out on the other side.
Precisely.
Oh.
And as you take more actions, as you experience those small wins, the fear will start to diminish and you'll build that confidence muscle.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not about eliminating fear altogether.
Right.
It's about learning to manage it,
Exactly.
to use it as fuel for growth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. This idea of taking action, of not letting fear hold us back, connects perfectly to our next point, which is the importance of continuous learning.
Yes.
It's so easy to get stuck in our own little trading bubble,
Yeah.
thinking we have to figure everything out on our own.
Right. But there's a wealth of knowledge out there, from books and courses to podcasts like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Learning from others, from those who have walked the trading path before us, can be a real shortcut to success.
One of the stories that really stood out to me was Anna's. She had a copy of Trading for a Living by Alexander Elder sitting on her shelf for ages.
Ah, a classic.
You know, one of those classic trading books that everyone recommends, but she kept putting off reading it, thinking she was too busy or that she already knew enough.
I think we've all got a stack of books like that,
Yeah.
the ones we intend to read someday.
Yeah, exactly.
But for Anna, the turning point came when she finally carved out just 5 minutes to read the first chapter.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
Those 5 minutes turned into an hour, then 2, then she ended up devouring the whole book.
Wow. Talk about a procrastination turnaround.
Right.
What was it about that book that had such a profound impact on her?
It wasn't just the technical information. It was the way Elder talked about the psychological aspects of trading, about managing your emotions, handling losses, and developing a disciplined mindset. It was like he was speaking directly to her struggles.
So it was less about learning new strategies and more about shifting her perspective on trading as a whole.
Exactly. It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable lessons aren't about specific indicators or chart patterns. They're about cultivating the right mindset and approach.
Yeah. It's like that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. In this case, Elder wasn't giving Anna trading fish. He was teaching her how to fish for herself.
I love that.
How to think critically and independently about the market.
That's a great analogy. And Anna's story is a powerful example of how even a small investment of time in learning can yield huge returns in knowledge and ultimately in trading results.
Yeah.
It's like compound interest for your trading brain.
I love that, compounding your knowledge. And speaking of compounding, that brings us to our final point today, goal setting. And more importantly, goal review.
Yes.
It's easy to set goals at the beginning of the year, the month, even the week.
Right.
But then life gets in the way and we forget to check in on those goals to see if we're still on track to make adjustments.
Right. And that's where Liam's story comes in.
Okay.
He was a trader who was great at setting ambitious goals, but then he'd get caught up in the day-to-day grind of the market, the wins, the losses, the constant noise, and he'd lose sight of the bigger picture.
So it was like he was setting off on a journey without a map or a compass.
That's a great way to put it.
He had a destination in mind, but no clear path to get there.
And that's why he decided to implement a simple system.
Okay.
Every Monday morning, he would spend just 5 minutes reviewing his weekly goals.
Just 5 minutes.
That's it.
I spend more time than that deciding what to have for breakfast.
But those 5 minutes had a profound impact. It forced him to reconnect with his why, to remind himself of what he was working towards, both financially and personally.
So it was like a mini coaching session with himself,
Exactly.
a way to realign his actions with his goals.
Precisely. It provided that sense of direction and accountability that he'd been missing.
Mm.
And the results were undeniable.
Really?
He was more focused, more disciplined, and more aligned with his overall trading plan. His performance steadily improved.
Mm.
Not because he was suddenly a better trader, but because he was consistently working towards a clear objective.
This really emphasizes that goal setting isn't just about writing things down.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with those goals, reviewing them, adjusting them, and making sure your actions are aligned with your aspirations.
You've got it. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Okay.
Just 5 minutes a week.
Mm-hmm.
A simple check-in to see where you stand,
Mm-hmm.
what's working, what needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small investment of time that can pay off massively in the long run.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the psychological traps of procrastination
Mm-hmm.
to the power of small actions,
Sure.
real life examples,
Mm.
and expert insights.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to touch on something
Yeah.
that's been weaving its way through our entire conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea that procrastination isn't just laziness.
Right.
It's often a symptom of something deeper.
Yes.
Something like fear, self-doubt, or a lack of clarity.
You're absolutely right. And that's why simply telling ourselves to stop procrastinating rarely works. We need to address the underlying issues. Those emotional and psychological barriers
Yeah.
that are keeping us stuck.
So it's like treating the cause, not just the symptom. Instead of just beating ourselves up for procrastinating, we need to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? What am I afraid of?
Exactly. And once you understand the why behind the procrastination, you can start to develop strategies for overcoming it.
Okay.
Maybe it's about breaking down those big, scary goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right.
Maybe it's about finding an accountability partner or a mentor to support you on your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's about simply giving yourself permission to make mistakes,
Yeah.
to learn and grow without judgment.
That's such an important point. We often get caught up in this pursuit of perfection, thinking
Yeah.
we have to have it all figured out before we can even start. But the
Yeah.
truth is, progress, not perfection, is what matters.
You've nailed it.
Yeah.
It's about embracing that growth mindset, knowing that you're going to stumble along the way,
Mm-hmm.
but that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Those stumbles are actually valuable learning opportunities
Mm-hmm.
if you're willing to embrace them.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's making me rethink my whole approach to, well, pretty much everything in trading.
Yeah.
But especially this idea that we need to be kind to ourselves, to acknowledge that we're all works in progress.
Absolutely. Trading is a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be detours,
Yeah.
roadblocks, and maybe even a few flat tires along the way.
Right.
But it's those challenges that make us stronger, more resilient traders.
All right, so to recap everything we've explored today,
Okay.
procrastination in trading is often fueled by fear,
Mm-hmm.
self-doubt, and a lack of clarity.
Right.
But we can break free from those limitations
Mhm.
by taking small, consistent actions.
Yeah.
Journaling helps us turn hindsight into foresight,
Mhm.
revealing those hidden patterns and emotional triggers that drive our decisions.
Exactly.
Risk management acts as a safety net,
Absolutely.
protecting our capital
Mhm.
and allowing us to stay in the game even when we make mistakes.
Yes.
And let's be honest, we all make mistakes.
That's right. We're all human.
That's why reviewing those mistakes, analyzing what went wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and turning those losses into valuable lessons is so crucial.
Absolutely.
And of course, having a well-defined trading strategy is essential. It acts as our compass,
Mm.
guiding our decisions,
Right.
and helping us avoid those impulsive, emotion-driven trades that can really derail our progress.
Exactly.
But the strategy isn't static.
Right.
It needs to evolve alongside our trading journey.
Absolutely.
Then there's the emotional game, that constant battle between fear and greed,
Yeah.
FOMO, and the desire to be right.
It's a constant battle.
Developing strategies for managing those emotions,
Yeah.
like Nick's simple breathing exercise, can make a world of difference in our trading performance.
Absolutely.
And finally, we can't forget the importance of continuous learning, reading books,
Yeah.
listening to podcasts,
Uh-huh.
taking courses,
Right.
even just having conversations with other traders. These are all ways to expand our knowledge, challenge our assumptions,
Absolutely.
and keep growing as traders.
And the most exciting part is that it doesn't require a complete overhaul of your life or your trading approach.
Mm-hmm.
Just start with one small step today.
Okay.
Pick one action we've discussed and commit to implementing it.
Okay.
Then build on that success, add another action next week and another the week after. It's about creating that upward spiral of momentum where those small wins fuel your motivation and keep you moving forward.
It's like that snowball effect.
Yeah.
It starts small, but as it rolls along, it picks up more and more momentum, becoming this unstoppable force.
And I love that analogy. And I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Imagine where you could be a year from now if you started implementing just one of these tips today. What kind of trader could you become? What kind of results could you achieve?
Wow.
The possibilities are truly limitless.
That's an incredibly powerful thought. And a perfect note to end on. It's a reminder that we have the power to change our trading, to overcome those procrastination demons,
Yes.
and achieve those goals that might seem so far away right now. So we were talking about Anna and how reading that one book really had a profound impact on her trading.
It did, yeah.
And it kind of ties into this idea that even when we think we know a lot,
Right.
there's always more to learn.
Always. The market's constantly evolving. There are always new things to discover, new strategies to explore.
So it's not just about, like, the initial learning phase.
Right. It's an ongoing process. I've been trading for over a decade, and I'm still learning something new every day.
Wow. Okay, so continuous learning is key.
Absolutely.
Got it. So we've talked about the importance of journaling, having a solid risk management plan in place,
Right.
and actively reviewing our trades, both the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
But there's another piece of the puzzle that we haven't really touched on yet,
Okay.
and that's goal setting.
Ah, yes. Goal setting. It's one of those things that we all know we should be doing, but it's so easy to put off.
It is. And, it's funny because I think a lot of us are actually pretty good at setting goals, like at the beginning of the year.
Right. New Year's resolutions, trading goals. We're all motivated. We're all excited for the year ahead.
Right. But then what happens?
Well, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
We get busy. We get distracted. We
Right.
hit a few bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And those goals that we were so excited about at the beginning of the year end up gathering dust on the shelf.
That's so true.
So how do we avoid that? How do
Yeah.
we make sure that our goals actually translate into real results?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. And there's no magic formula. But there are a few key things that we can do to increase our chances of success. And one of the most important is to make sure that our goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You've probably heard of SMART goals.
Smart goals, yeah.
It's a popular framework. But it's popular for a reason. It works.
Okay, so how do we actually apply that framework to our trading roles?
Well, let's take an example. Let's say your goal is to improve your win rate.
Okay,
That's a good goal, but it's not very specific.
right.
So how do we make it more specific?
Yeah, how do we make it smart?
Well, we need to attach some numbers to it.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, I want to improve my win rate, you might say, I want to increase my win rate from 50% to 60% over the next 3 months.
Okay.
Now we have a goal that is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound.
Okay. So it's smart.
Exactly. And by making our goals smart, we're much more likely to actually achieve them.
That makes sense. So we've set our smart trading goals. Now what?
Now we need to make sure that we're actually taking action toward those goals.
Okay.
And that's where the review process comes in.
The review process.
Yeah, it's so easy to set goals and then forget about them.
Right. It's like we check that box and then we move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Oh.
But if we want to actually achieve our goals,
Mm-hmm.
we need to be consistently reviewing them.
Okay. So how often should we be reviewing our goals?
Well, that depends on the goal.
Okay.
But I think a good rule of thumb is to review your goals at least once a week.
Okay.
Maybe even more often if it's a really important goal.
Mhm.
And when you're reviewing your goals, you want to ask yourself a few key questions.
Okay. Like what?
Like, am I still on track to achieve this goal? What progress have I made this week? What obstacles am I facing? What adjustments do I need to make? And so on.
So it's not just about like checking in to see if we've hit our targets.
Right. It's about really reflecting on the process and making sure that we're still moving in the right direction.
Yeah. This makes me think about like, those GPS systems in our cars?
Yeah.
Like they give us that initial route, but then they also recalculate.
Exactly. They adjust based on traffic conditions, road closures,
Oh.
and other unexpected events.
And so we need to be doing the same thing with our trading goals.
Absolutely, because the
Yeah.
market is just like that.
Yeah.
It's constantly throwing us curveballs.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be adaptable.
Right.
We need to be willing to adjust our course as needed.
And that's where the review process comes in.
Exactly. It helps us stay flexible,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps us avoid getting stuck in a rut.
Yeah. You know, one of the stories that really illustrates the power of goal review is Liam's story.
Okay.
So Liam was a trader
Mm-hmm.
who was really struggling to stay consistent with his trading.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have periods of really great performance,
Okay.
followed by periods of, kind of just treading water.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah. It's like we get on these hot streaks and then we just kind of fizzle out.
Right. And Liam was really frustrated by this.
Okay.
He knew he had the potential to be a successful trader,
Mm-hmm.
but he just couldn't seem to string together a series of winning trades.
Okay. So what did he do?
Well, he decided to start implementing a weekly goal review process.
Okay.
So every Sunday evening,
Mm-hmm.
he would sit down with his trading journal,
Okay.
and he would review his goals for the week.
Mm-hmm.
And he would ask himself a few key questions,
Okay, like what kind of question?
like, did I achieve my goals this week? If not, why not?
Mm.
What could I have done differently? What did I learn this week?
Okay.
What are my goals for next week? And so on.
And what was the impact of this review process?
Well, the impact was huge.
Really?
Liam's trading performance improved dramatically.
Mm.
He was no longer just trading randomly.
Right.
He was trading with a purpose.
Okay.
He knew what he wanted to achieve each week,
Mm-hmm.
and he was taking concrete steps to achieve it.
Mm.
And the really cool thing is that
Yeah.
this review process didn't just improve Liam's trading performance.
Really?
It also improved his overall well-being.
In what way?
Well, he was less stressed,
Okay.
he was more confident,
Mm.
and he was actually enjoying trading more.
So it was like this positive feedback loop
Exactly.
where the review process was not only helping him achieve his trading goals, but it was also making him a happier person.
Precisely.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it really highlights the power of goal setting and goal review.
So it's not enough to just set goals.
Right,
We
yeah.
need to actively review them
Yeah.
and make adjustments as needed.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And the more consistent we are with our review process,
Mhm.
the more likely we are to achieve our goals.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And you know what's really cool is that this review process doesn't have to be complicated.
Okay.
It can be as simple as spending a few minutes each week reflecting on your progress and identifying areas where you can improve.
So it's about making it a habit.
Exactly.
It's about building that consistency.
Yeah. Just like we talked about with journaling and risk management,
Right.
it's about creating those positive habits
Mm-hmm.
that will help us succeed in the long run.
That makes sense. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the key is to just start somewhere.
Okay.
Don't get overwhelmed by the process.
Mm-hmm.
Just pick one thing.
Okay.
Maybe it's journaling.
Right.
Maybe it's setting up a risk management plan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's setting a SMART goal.
Oh, okay.
Whatever it is, just commit to doing it consistently
Mm-hmm.
and then build on that success.
So it's about taking those small steps.
Exactly.
And building momentum over time.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
There are resources available to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Books, courses, podcasts, mentors.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's our amazing community of traders here.
Absolutely. We're all in this together. Okay, so to sum it all up, we've talked about the importance of journaling, risk management,
Right.
reviewing our trades,
Absolutely.
setting smart goals,
Yeah.
and reviewing those goals regularly.
And all of these things are interconnected.
Yeah.
They all work together to help us become more consistent,
Mhm.
more disciplined, and ultimately more successful traders.
Okay, so what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
That's a great question. I think the one thing I want our listeners to take away is that procrastination is not a life sentence.
I like that.
It's something that we can overcome.
Hmm.
And the sooner we start taking action,
Yeah.
the sooner we can start achieving our trading goals.
This has been such a valuable conversation.
It has.
It's really making me think about my own trading in a new light.
Yeah.
And I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. And it all starts with
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's a process
Absolutely.
and that we're going to have setbacks along the way.
You will. And it's how you respond to those setbacks that really matters.
Yeah, that's what separates the successful traders from the ones who just kind of give up.
That's right.
Okay, so to recap everything we've explored today,
Okay.
procrastination in trading. It's often fueled by fear,
Yeah.
self-doubt,
Mm.
and a lack of clarity.
Right.
But we can break free from those limitations by taking small, consistent actions.
Small, consistent actions.
Journaling.
Yes.
It helps turn hindsight into foresight.
Absolutely.
It reveals those hidden patterns
Yeah.
and those emotional triggers that drive our decisions.
Right.
Then we have risk management that acts as a safety net.
It does.
It protects our capital,
Yeah.
and it allows us to stay in the game even when we make mistakes.
Even when we make mistakes.
And let's be honest, we all make mistakes.
We do. We're all human.
That's why reviewing those mistakes, analyzing what went wrong,
Yeah.
turning those losses into valuable lessons
Yes.
is so crucial.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we talked about having a well-defined trading strategy. It's essential. It acts as our compass.
Yeah.
It helps us avoid those impulsive, emotion-driven trades that can really derail our progress.
Right.
But remember, a strategy isn't static.
It's not. It needs to evolve as you evolve as a trader.
Then there's the emotional game.
The emotional game.
Yeah.
It could be tough.
That constant battle between fear and greed,
Yes.
FOMO, and the desire to be right.
Absolutely.
Developing strategies for managing those emotions, like
Yeah.
we talked about with Nick's simple breathing exercise,
Yeah.
can make a world of difference in our trading performance.
For sure.
And then finally, we can't forget the importance of continuous learning.
Yes. Always be learning, always be growing.
Reading books, listening to podcasts, taking courses, even just having conversations with other traders. These are all ways to expand our knowledge,
Absolutely.
challenge our assumptions,
Yeah.
and keep growing as traders.
And the most exciting part is that it doesn't require a complete overhaul of your life or your trading approach. You know, just start with one small step today.
Oh.
Pick one action we've discussed and commit to implementing it.
Okay.
You know, and then build on that success.
Right.
Add another action next week and another the week after that.
So it's about those small wins
Yeah.
and building momentum over time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating that upward spiral where those small wins fuel your motivation and keep you moving forward.
Like that snowball effect.
Yeah.
Starts small, but as it rolls along, it picks up more and more momentum, becomes this unstoppable force.
Yeah.
So I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
Imagine where you could be a year from now
Yeah.
if you started implementing just one of these tips today.
What kind of trader could you become? What kind of results could you achieve? The possibilities are truly limitless.
That's powerful stuff. You know, and it's a good reminder that we all have the power to change our trading,
We do.
to overcome those procrastination demons,
Absolutely.
and to achieve those goals that might seem so far away right now.
You got this.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into conquering procrastination in trading. We hope you found it valuable
It's been a pleasure being here.
and that you're feeling inspired to take action. Remember, progress, not perfection, is the key.
That's right.
So go out there, make a small change today.
Yeah.
And let's see where this journey takes you.
Good luck, everyone.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.